In today's video, I've got 5 facts about Nero from the Fate series. I'll be covering her combat abilities, her tragic backstory, which way she swings in the bedroom, wink wink, and more. And hey, if you're new here, why not join the 4-on-4 community by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a video. I'll also quickly add that if you haven't seen all of Fate Extra, there will be spoilers. You have been warned. So with that being said, let's roll intro and get straight into the video. Nero, also known as Emperor of Roses or simply Red Saber, is of the Saber class during the Moon Cell Holy Grail War set in the Fate Extra series, where she was servant to Hokuno Kishinami. In terms of her basic stats, Nero is female, stands at 150 centimeters tall, just short of 5 foot, and weighs 92.5 pounds. I also have her 3 sizes, you lucky bunch. Her bust is 32.5 inches, her waist 22 inches, and her hips are 32 inches. You are very welcome. In terms of appearance, Nero, like I mentioned, is short, but has a nice curvy physique. One of her most distinguishing features is her enticing large pale green eyes, and the other and most likely most distinguishing feature is her long golden blonde hair that she wears in a bun, comboed with the classic antenna, exactly like that of Artoria Pendragon, aka King Arthur, the Saber of the 4th and 5th Holy Grail Wars. Interesting fact here too, though the resemblance between these two is pretty much only determined by clothes and eye colour, there is in fact no relation between them. Interestingly, it was said that King Arthur was a fusion between 2 individuals, and one of them was the Roman general Artorius. So who knows, maybe there is some form of a link between the 2 of them. But to be honest, the real reason that these 2 look so alike was because the creators wanted to trick the fanbase into thinking they were the same character and then reveal Nero as her own character as a surprise to those playing the game. Nero, like all of Fate's characters, come in different forms of attire, be it battle attire, casual, the ever popular swimwear editions, though it will be her main servant attire from Fate Extra that is the one I shall cover here. So Nero wears a rather revealing red and white dress that has a transparent front and long fancy sleeves, which looks classy from the front, but when she turns around, oh nice! As well as that, she has those awesome knee-high golden armoured boots, and I think I've just remembered why Nero is in my top 3 servants from this franchise. Though in Type Moon's 10th anniversary poll, she was only ranked 14th in the most popular female characters. Where does she rank for you? Let me know in the comments. Though summoned as a Saber-class servant, Nero would have been much better suited as a Commander-type servant. The reason for this is because of her servant parameters, which is another name for a servant's overall stats. Nero's parameters wouldn't have actually qualified for the famous Saber class. However, it is because of a skill that she possesses called Imperial Privilege that in turn helped her attain this class, but I'll go into that in a bit more detail in the next fact. These low parameters of hers was most likely down to the fact that, as we all know, a servant draws strength or mana from their individual masters. In her case, in Fate Extra, her master was actually an NPC made by Mooncell and had to work out for himself how to power his servant. Because of this, Nero's parameters at the start were a very low E rank, and she suffered extreme loss in power and strength of her skills, including her Noble Phantasm. But in case you're wondering, her parameters as normal are as follows. In terms of strength, she ranks a D. Endurance, once again a D. Agility, she excels as an A rank. Mana, a B rank. Luck, once again she excels with an A rank, and her Noble Phantasm is a B rank that I'll get into in the next fact. So when describing Nero's combat ability, I can really only sum her up as what you would call a hard hitter. Nero delivers extremely powerful sword blows and skills to her opponents. Nero has also named her skills after her love for flowers, and some skills are named based off of her status as an emperor. Nero was in fact that strong that previous to becoming a heroic spirit, using her skills and strengths, she was able to publicly grapple and strangle a lion using only her bare arms. Crazy, right? This public stunt was all because she had a love and fixation on the legendary Hercules and wanted to emulate that in front of her citizens. Thing was, they weren't that impressed by it. I can't think but only ask myself, like, how are you not impressed by that? And I think it's also worth mentioning that she was a very skilled rider of a chariot chariot, enough so that you could say that she'd be quite perfect for the rider class. However, it is her dislike for riders that she never became a servant of this class. Now, in terms of weapons, Nero wields a handcrafted, long, strange-shaped scarlet, kind of crimson, and black sword, which is called Astus Estus, the original flame, or Astus Estus, the embryonic flame. This blade had an inscription on it that reads, and once again pardon my awful Latin skills, Regnum Calarum et Gehenna, which is translated to read the kingdom of heaven and hell. Nero feels that this blade was the ultimate weapon and loved the fact that people would bow before the sound it made when it was swung, which, fit perfectly with her pride and, you could say, general smugness of being a Roman emperor. Okay, so let's talk about Nero's skill, imperial privilege, also known as royal or emperor's prerogative. This skill is a personal one to Nero. Its ability was to obtain the skills of others that were otherwise impossible to obtain, as these said skills were unique to that person, and though she was able to obtain these skills, they were, however, only borrowed for a short period of time. Now, there were a couple of things here that made this skill of hers a useful one. The first is based on her title as an emperor. The skills she obtained, even at an A rank, were possible to modify. As Roman emperor, she was considered by the Roman people on the same level as the gods, and whatever she said was followed. As an example, if the emperor was to say that white is black, you bet that colour is black, no questions asked. The point here is that the skills she obtains acts as the civilians of Rome and bend to her will. Pretty OP if you think about it. The second is based solely on her personality and traits. Nero had such a curiosity, so much so that she would have experienced a whole lot of skills anyway, based on just wanting to, experience them for herself. Combine this with her self-confidence, and she can handle almost anything. As an example of this, taken from the Fate Extra material book, Saber wanted to pilot a jet. She looked at the jet and compared it to the chariots from her time, and just like that would figure out how to pilot the jet. The downside is that Nero has a short attention span and suffered from very severe headaches and would often soon forget all that she'd just learned. And next up I want to talk about Nero's noble phantasm, Astus Domus Aurea, Golden Theatre of the Flamboyant, also known as Golden Theatre of the Deranged. This B-rank noble phantasm takes form as the Domus Theatre through magical energy, which was a theatre designed by Nero and constructed in Rome during her lifetime. Though similar to that of a reality marble, it is its own different thing due to how it is materialized. It is said as well that this place allows its owner to achieve their aspirations. So after 3 giant strikes and planting her sword into the ground, she is able to summon this absolute imperial zone. Within this theatre, everything becomes advantageous to Nero. Her parameters are boosted, all enemies trapped inside become weakened, even the buildings caught within can be moulded and customized. As well as this, once inside this theatre, Nero's sword would be engulfed in flames, just like that of an inferno, and then rose petals would dance in the air around her. This is kind of basically a nod to Nero's artistic side. Next up, let's talk about the people behind the voice of Saber. Nero's Japanese voice actress is Sakura Tang. She has voiced other characters such as Sakura Kinomoto in Cardcaptor Sakura, Chika from Chika the Coffin Princess, Assassin of Black, Jack the Ripper in Fate Apocrypha, and many more. Then there's Nero's English voice actress, and that is Cassandra Morris. She has voiced other characters such as Yubel in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Kyubey from Madoka Magica, Leafa in Sword Art Online, Benio Adeshino from Twin Star Exorcists, Kota Izumi in My Hero Academia, and, of course, many more. Nero's father was cousin to the 4th Emperor Claudius, and her mother was the younger sister to the Emperor Caligula. Nero's father was considered as weak, and thus Nero was not allowed succession to the throne. I'm going to butcher this name, but Nero's mother, Agrippina, later remarried to her uncle, the Emperor Claudius, I know, right, and convinced him to adopt Nero. It doesn't stop there either. Agrippina also pressured her new husband's daughter, Octavia, into marrying Nero. A lot of Nero's relatives were most certainly not fond of this, and also turned their noses at the thought of his illegitimate birthright. And, over time, the relationship between them dwindled. This didn't really matter much to Nero, as she had more affection for the citizens of Rome rather than her own relatives. So in the year 54 AD, Nero, now 17 years old, succeeded her stepfather after her mother had murdered him. Now on the throne, Nero got rid of indirect taxes and actually gave money to the Roman citizens in celebration celebration of her new reign. Much to the delight of these new citizens, she also attempted to reform the broken government and corrupt Senate that was around her at the time. Due to Nero's generosity, fair policies, and attention of care for diplomacy, this led to relations with Britannia improving, which made her, very popular and adored by the Roman citizens. Skip forward a few years, we're now at 59 AD, and this is the year that Nero's reputation as a tyrant began. Nero was still stuck between two things: one, the still corrupt Senate, and two, her self-absorbed mother, who at this point was only using Nero as a tool. Conflicts between Nero and her mother were, getting more and more frequent, much so that it got to the point where Nero hired an assassin to murder her mother. This assassination failed. This led to Nero publicly cutting down her own mother, claiming that her mother was trying to poison her. And around this time, Nero had been suffering from severe headaches and hysteria. This was due to the fact that Nero constantly drank from a silver cup. And it also turned out that the mother trying to poison her thing was true. At a young age, Nero's mother poisoned her so that she would not defy her mother. Her mother, of course, had an antidote to this poison, which she would give to Nero. However, she had now taken that antidote with her to the grave. Because of this, Nero fell into a disturbed state of mind. From this point, things only spiraled out of control and led to Nero having to endure more tragedy. Firstly, Nero's wife Octavia committed suicide. Then her younger stepbrother was murdered, supposedly on Nero's orders, as his existence was a threat to his place on the throne. This drove Nero's only mentor, and a man that she considered to be a father, to suicide. Nero had said to this mentor that no matter what happens, she will forgive him. Being skeptical of Nero's words, this is what led him to commit suicide, and in Nero's house for that matter. Though what hurt Nero more was the fact that her mentor didn't trust her words. Still unpopular with her relatives, she did become more and more popular with the Roman citizens over this time. Now, in 64 AD, a huge fire broke out in Rome. Nero gained ever more popularity after her swift response as emperor, though the victims could only manage a minimum effort thanks. Following the fire, Nero constructed the Domus Aurea Theatre, which I spoke about earlier. 5 years later, in 69 AD, a revolt led by a man named Vindex occurred. At the time, Nero thought nothing of it, but 2 years later, another rebellion was instigated, and at this point, the Senate had had enough of Nero. This was because of her apparent mishandling of the initial revolt, which was more than likely down to Nero's dwindling state of mind at this point. What followed next was that she was branded a traitor and had to escape Rome. At this point, Nero had convinced herself that all the generosity she had shown the Roman people would help her keep the throne. However, the public's voice was silent. The Roman people had now abandoned Nero. Even after everything she had done from them, they chose not to protect her. And the crazy thing is, Nero didn't resent the people for this. She instead was greatly saddened by her own error in judgment and the lack of uproar by the people she believed would stand up for her. Tragically, Nero decided to take her own life, even against her own will. She believed that an artist should not go out this way. Eventually, she did overcome this and stabbed herself in the throat with a knife. Just after the suicide, a soldier wrapped a cloak around her, and as he did, Nero's last words were spoken, which were, "Too late. This is fidelity." Bonus fact, thus not to end on a sad note. Like mentioned, Nero considered herself an artist and adored beauty, like all aspects of beauty. Whatever she considered as beautiful, she was passionate about. An example of this would be flowers, but this also holds true when it came to other people. Regardless of gender, if Nero thought you were beautiful, she'd go for you. And she actually had always referred to herself as half and half, and found her ability to go for either sex admirable. As an example, and probably the easiest one that comes to mind, would be her feelings towards Hakuno, regardless of their gender. And once again, in terms of regardless of their gender, she eventually did declare her love for them. Classic Nero, really. But thanks for watching. This was my video, 5 facts about Nero from the Fate series. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you'd like to see more characters from the Fate franchise, let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed this video, as it really does help my videos reach a wider audience, and subscribe for more anime-based content. But till next time, my fellow weebs, peace!